Traders, investors, what is going on? We are back. So let's talk about using Ripsters Ema clouds on some of the bigger time frames now. In the last video, we talked about trading with them on the 10-minute time frame for some short swings, intraday trades. And now we're going to look at some longer setups, 1 week, 2 week, and longer kind of trades. So maybe before we jump into this, I should preface our conversation with this. So I posted this graphic and I created it after I made the video. But anyways, this explains where, the different EMAs are in the region in between, and then how they kind of flip. So let's go over it real quick. So you see the 200 over here and the 180 on the bottom. Now the reason the 180 is on the bottom is because it's a bearish setup, right? So bearish setups, your big EMAs are going to be on the top, your smaller EMAs are going to be on the bottom. So you'll see as this flips to a long setup, we start to see all these clouds flipping to the blue and green color. Now you'll see that it reverses. So now the 180 is on the top, the 200 is on the bottom. We got the color change. Same thing right here, right? So you got your 8 and your 9, either side of that little cloud on the inside there. And then the 512, that's the big cloud, 3450. 7289, and once again the 180-200. So before we jump into how to use these on the longer time frames, let's do a quick recap on the 10-minute time frame. Just want to clarify any confusion that I might have caused in the last video. So here's Ripster's rules when trading with these clouds on the 10-minute time frame. So the first rule is the 512 cloud. If this holds, the trend holds, long or short. So you see the trend's healthy, we're riding up. The next rule is the 8-9 cloud. It acts as a pullback add zone. So there you go there. And you'll notice that, these happen to line up with a good add point, right? Kind of broke here, caught some resistance, sold off a little bit, and then the buy support stepped in and pushed us above this point here. So I would already kind of be looking for this area as an add point. So this just kind of highlights it. It shows it for you. So anyways, moving on. And so the 3450 should be your final line in the sand. If this holds or bounces here, then the trend can reverse. But if it sells off further and gets caught under it, you can see we keep pushing off it. Clouds get smaller, price breaks down further. Trying to regain some ground here, and now we start to have color change and the price breaks down further, right? And my little caveat to those rules that I kind of highlighted in the last video was the 7289 is my kind of line in the sand. If it falls under this, it is going to fall further. And you see 512 cloud crossing two clouds, breaks down further, again and again and again. Same thing, right? Crossing from the bottom side, cross two clouds. Happens to be at a kind of a gap up region. Shocker, that's how it works. So trying to determine the move off the 3450 takes a little bit more experience, and so you'll find, if the 3450 breaks down sometimes, it has the ability to rebound from that point. It doesn't always mean if we lose this, it's going to sell off further. But I've found if we lose the 7289, see we actually got some support there, stepped in. That's when the price normally breaks down further, and you see this time and time again. We can see it cross the 7289, breaks down a little bit further, crosses the 7289, breaks down further. Now we're crossing the 180-200, so that's your red flag. Also red flag. Got the color changing happening up here on the 3450, and the 7289 now are flipping bearish, and this thing drops like a rock afterwards. So enough of that. Let's jump into the longer plays. And keep in mind, you can start scaling in or scaling out before any of these points. I think Ripster's whole method, the reason he's a breakout trader and he trades the way he does is he's not really worried about, buying the bottom or selling the top. He just wants quality move, and he waits for those criteria to set up. And so sure, if you're looking at it in here, would it have been better to sell right here or scale into a short here? Absolutely. But the rules say on the 1 hour chart, the 3450 is your line in the sand. And even more so because we're on a big chart, right? So he says on the 1 hour chart, cut half or full swing position if the 3450 breaks down. So you see right here, trend starts to reverse, 512 cloud turns bearish, and we start running down the backside of it. Actually pushed a little bit off of it. So then we come down to the 3450, almost a little doji there. Price breaks down, then we get caught under it. Now we're catching on the 72.89, so there's hope. But you see, the price starts to break down further. I mean, we're really having a hard time now. We don't have a nice healthy 512 cloud anymore. It's really jumpy. And we're continually kind of just getting caught in and under the 3450. The price breaks down. For crossing the 72.89, that means this thing is probably going to drop like a rock, and it crosses it in a meaningful way. You see it's not actually getting any support, certainly not getting any 512 cloud support, so the price breaks down further. So at that point, hopefully you're completely out of your position, and you're either taking a step back and waiting, or you're scaling into some puts or a short position, and RIP says, intraday only short under the 10-minute cloud or 1 hour 3450 EMA, cut longs. And so that's just what we talked about here. So we are under the 3450. Not only that, but the 72.89 breaks down. So, you know, he says your line in the sand is the 3450. That's when you maybe take a starter. When the trend starts to go the way you think it's going to go, that's when you scale in the rest of the way. So that's why I kind of like the 72.89 as, you know, the 3450 is your final line in the sand, but my decider is the 72.89. So here we go, we're at a past low. So you're thinking maybe I'm going to start scaling in, I'll add some here. The 512 cloud starts to turn green, bullish, and we're starting to cross other clouds here. Now see, here's the caveat. We're crossing the 72.89 there. It should rip, right? Well, I mean, you could capture a little move. You could have your stop set kind of conservatively. But if you look here, you notice it's actually rejecting the 180-200 cloud. That's bearish. We'd like it to rip up through the 72.89 and then pretty quickly get above the 180-200, but it doesn't. It rejects it 2 days in a row, and then it sells off further. So at that point, you know, you'd cut your long position, scale back into a short, put kind of scenario, or you just take a step back. So the price breaks down further, keeps falling. So you're looking at it this day, it's just an absolute chop fest. And you notice your 512 cloud's starting to change. And if you look here, you notice the 3450 cloud is really big, and it's getting a lot thinner. You know, so back in here, this is still too choppy, but right in here I'd be thinking, all right, this might reverse from here. We got the cloud crossing, pushes off the 3450, breaks through the 72.89. You know, not only that, don't just use the ribbons, use your brain. This is definitely a past high, so pushing above this, you know, it's going to be a little mini breakout at least till we get to this last high, which is where it starts rejecting again. But so anyways, trend's starting to reverse here now. Looks healthy. I would be scaling in, you know, completely by this point, whatever that means for you. And then so here we are again, starts to run, and you notice that, hey man, the 180-200 is actually a lot thicker now. So we rejected it back in here when that trend wasn't very strong yet. So now that the trend is strong, what happens? Well, we reject it multiple times. You know, and at this point, we don't have a healthy trend yet. It's not a healthy reversal. You know, the clouds are still the clouds really aren't showing a true direction yet. So at this point, if the 3450 breaks down, I would definitely be cutting my position. I'm not going to wait for the 72.89 because, I mean, look at it. The 72.89 is just a little wisp of nothing. I mean, there's not a strong trend here, right? So you cut it, you get out, it falls further. So now you're nibbling in areas that maybe are cheaper than when you're adding in here. Actually, I wouldn't be adding yet. This is when I'm adding. Here we go, try number 2. So, you know, not a strong trend yet, bullish or bearish, just kind of consolidating in price discovery mode. But so then here you go, not a lot of resistance here, thin clouds, so we break through that, and now we break above the 180-200. This is like all systems go, reverse mortgage the house. No, please don't do that. Don't listen to me. But at this point, you know that, hey, we haven't been above this in a very long time. This is probably about to rip. And it absolutely does for a couple days. So anyways, you could have added any of this in here. The 912 is always a buy region. The 8-9 rather. And it rips further. Now it's still kind of in price discovery mode. I mean, Mara is super choppy. Doesn't hurt to zoom out either. So you go on the 4-hour. And now it doesn't look as beautiful, does it? So now on the 4-hour, we say, okay, well, we would have taken this in here, crossing the 3450. Maybe added a little bit more in here. It's still really not holding and breaking down, these bigger bearish clouds. It needs to go green. So really, if you want to sit back and just wait for the healthiest move, the price, the direction still isn't clear in here. And so you see, how the 1-hour chart can give you trade ideas for a couple of days, couple of weeks. But if you want to look at the bigger moves, it's got to zoom out. So maybe you would have looked at this in here and, you would have scaled in some, but you probably wouldn't have put in a lot because it's still not super healthy yet. The direction is still unclear. However, at this point, once again, this has been a troubled area. We're breaking above the 180-200 EMA cloud, and it's starting to move. So at this point, we're kind of at the past high. These past highs over here. And so this is when so this is definitely an area to keep an eye on if we break through that point. And not only are we breaking through that, but just look how, unorganized and all over the place the clouds are here. They're starting to reverse, in unison. And look how nice and thick these clouds are now. So the direction is clear. We are going up, boys. So at this point, I would have added some, waited for a pullback, and then we come down in here. The 3450, you remember, is our line in the sand, and our 7289 is our decider. So this just gets eaten up in the 3450, pushes off the 7289, never really even tests it, and then we rip higher. So anyways, traders, I hope that gives you some ideas on how you can use these EMA clouds on a bigger time frames. This is going to work, a kind of monthly basis on the 4-hour. 1 hour would be like weekly, and I use the 10-minute for intraday and like quick swings. So anyways, traders, I hope you enjoyed. Hit the thing, do the stuff, follow me on the stuff and things. If you don't, join the Discord, and I will catch you in the next one.